There's a lot of languages around here though. But like, the thing is like if you look at this world, all of these people right here, like like all of here, here, and here, and here, and much of here, all speak Indo-European languages. And that's all everybody talks about. Like if you go into the linguistic community on YouTube and you look up material, everything is always about Germanic languages, about Slavic languages, about Romance languages, at least in the English-speaking world. And then maybe there's like a little tiny bit about major Asian languages. They hardly ever go into Okinawan, but I mean, they go into like Korean and like for example, if you look at Lang Focus, they're always like Korean versus Japanese, or like there's tons of videos about like Korean versus Japanese, the history of English, the great vowel shift, and we just constantly like only evaluate the major world languages, like English, like Russian versus Polish, or can Catalan speakers understand Italian, like shit like that, or like can Tagalog speakers understand like Hindi or whatever? No, I mean not Tagalog. Like how much can Spanish speakers, like Spanish versus Tagalog, or like Arabic versus Hebrew? But we don't go and like do Skatradi, or like little tiny languages. Like we're forgetting them. Like honestly, this is maybe one of the safest parts of Yemen right now. But yeah, Socotra. What the hell about their language? I mean, yeah, they speak Arabic, but like they also speak their own Semitic language. Like I'm just kind of like tired of like people constantly talking about European languages, Asian languages, major Semitic languages, and it's just the world's major languages, and never talking about the other thousands of languages that we have. Like what the fuck? And like they try to add diversity, and they'll like add in, I don't know, Lao or Thai, and I'm like, those languages have millions of speakers. Why don't we add in like, I don't know, Ojibwe? Like, and then people like, especially in the U.S., they're like Native American. They're like Navajo. Like, there's a lot more than that. You know, we have 150 living ones, and let alone the dead ones. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that kind of annoys me, because it's like there's so many languages. Like, I remember reading one time that in Brazil, in the current territory of Brazil, there's like estimated to have been more than 1,200 languages, and now there's like 200 or 300, and a lot of those are European, and well, Japanese too. Brazilian Japanese is actually really interesting, because like they speak like old Japanese, whereas like Japanese in the modern day have like so much English. Kind of reminds me of like this guy named Dogen, like this.
あ、山本さん、ロングタイムノーシーです。どうですか、最近。いや、オフィスワークがちょっと多くて気分ダウンです。なるほど。僕は逆にブレインストーミングのミーティングがありすぎてモチベーションが上がんないです。しかもラストトレインなんでワークライフバランスが取れないです。ジャパニーズワークスタイルってやっぱハードですよね。いや、ベリータフですね。プレミアムフライデーはいいんですけど、プラスアルファでコーヒータイムも欲しいですよね。カジュアルでフレンドリーな感じがベストですもんね。あ、You はネクストミーティングでプロポ ポーザルを出したらどうですか？お、ナイスアイディアですね。うまくいったらロビーにあるスターバックスのテイクアウトをゲットできるかもしれませんね。Maybe I hope 日本語がすでにこうなっているから面白いですね。Yes.
So basically, if you go to like little parts of like over like up in here, this area. I mean, yeah, you can find like German down here, but like some areas in here, like you can find some plantations with like tons of like Japanese people speaking Japanese from like World War One era Japanese, which is relatively interesting. But yeah, like I don't know, like people never really talk about indigenous languages. People never really talk about, like at least in the English speaking world, we don't really talk about non-European languages or like languages that are like, we talk about the big languages. And when people are trying to get like outside of big languages, they just kind of like only talk about languages with millions of speakers. And I'm like, there's like literally hundreds of other languages, thousands of other languages. Like, even talking about living languages, because like the Andaman Islands right here, most of them languages are dead. Most of these languages are dead, but I mean, there's lots of them are alive. You look at the Americas. I mean, like, how many different types of Quechua are there? But like, the thing is that like you look at like Lang Focus, you look at like Native Lang does a lot better of a job, but you look at like just a lot of the major linguistic channels on YouTube, and all they focus on is fucking mainstream languages. And then they just have like one token large Native American language, or one token large African language, like Swahili. And then like some of these languages are really interesting, but like people hardly ever go into it. So I don't know. I just kind of want to like focus on how, like, I don't know, maybe we can talk about Tuareg or like Fang or like some shit like that. Like some of the Khoisan languages, or I don't know. The only language I know about from here is Mapuche. What's the other languages? Like, what are the languages of the Tierra del Fuego? Yeah, there's a lot of exploring to do, and yeah, you can also explore a lot of the depth. I mean, one thing that really interests me is like I'm from this region right here, and a lot of them speak, or well, that region. Traditionally, the Great Lakes region, a lot of it spoke Ojibwe. Or like, for example, how like Navajo is actually related to a lot of these languages. Who knew? But yeah, it's the Dene or Athabascan languages. Yeah, there's like a lake called Lake Athabasca. And one of the languages around here is related to Navajo, and so they named the entire language family after that lake. Looks pretty, but it's probably fucking hard to get to. But yeah, like, there's so much shit to explore, and people aren't exploring it. Like people look, like for example, like even when people are mentioning indigenous languages, all I really hear about is Greenlandic, Navajo, Maya, Quechua, and maybe a little tiny bit of Nahuatl. And then they mention like dead ones, like Taino. But what about Garifuna? Or like other ones? Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a fight to keep a lot of these languages alive, but I don't know. It's like super fucking interesting to me. And it's like also interesting how you can just like go like endlessly in a circle. And it's like a little cylinder. But yeah, think about it. But yeah, like what I mean. It seems pretty interesting. But yeah, another kind of interesting thing too is like a lot of these more localized languages, especially once you get into ethno-religious groups, they start becoming like very, I don't know, they just become interesting because like when you're talking about ethno-religious groups, their languages become very like separate from the rest of the culture because a lot of ethno-religious groups they have very very strong communities, maybe to a fault, but still they have very very strong communities, and so that's like especially German. In modern day Germany, we're seeing a very large. It's not to the extent of France because France like really killed all of their native languages or like their dialectal diversity a long time ago. Basically, France started with like probably Napoleon, and then Spain didn't start until like later on, and then but like you go to like Belgium, there hardly anybody speaks Wallon. You go to Normandy, and like very few people speak with like the traditional Norman accent. Very few people speak Catalan, Basque, Breton, Occitan, and Provençal, and the very myriad of other dialects, but like and languages. But in Germany, it's kind of been kept alive longer. Like people still speak with their dialects in these areas, and they can switch into High German, but they don't necessarily speak it all the time. And like still, there's like a lot of people outside of the cities who speak whatever dialect of German up here and whatnot, like the Franconian dialects and the Low German and whatever. But you look into that, and like a lot of those dialects have survived outside Germany in the Americas due to religious groups. I mean, Yiddish is doing very well in New York because of Hasidic communities. And you go over here, and the Hutterites speak what they call Hutterish, which is like a Carthaginian, something like that, Carolina, something like that. It's like from around this area, I believe. But yeah, they speak that, and then you get the Amish speaking Pennsylvania Dutch, which is not Dutch, but it's like German. It's like another kind of Hochdeutsch, and then you get Mennonites all over the place, like literally everywhere. Like Mennonites from up and down, speaking Platzdeutsch. It's actually a YouTube channel on that. But yeah, like literally, like even though like most of these countries speak Spanish, a lot of like Platzdeutsch people like they kind of immigrated all over the place here. Like, it's so interesting, and those are going to diverge into little groups and separate languages, like all these little Anabaptist groups, these Yiddish group, these like Yiddish speaking Jewish groups. They're going to make new Germanic languages in the future. And Afrikaans and Dutch will diverge more in the future. Actually, because of there's like a lot of white flight, mostly for economic reasons, and like it's just logical because if you look into before apartheid, who had the most money? White people. And so after apartheid, who had the most money to leave? White people. Who had the most money to send their kids to school? White people. It's only been 20, 30 years. I mean, yeah, black people have been getting up, but like, once they get money, they leave too, because they just don't see as much of a future in South Africa. So, I mean, Afrikaans, because of that, is no longer a majority white language. Mostly it's a colored language. And the coloreds are like a group of people, like mixture between Khoisan, Bantu, and white. Yeah, but they're the ones that are actually really keeping Afrikaans alive. But I mean, yeah, or you get like, there's groups of old believers from Russia. Like basically, there was a similar thing to the Reformation under Peter the Great, and they kind of reformed the Orthodox Church in Russia, and a lot of old Russian like believers, they left this like the heartland of Russia and moved all over the place. But there are but some of them were actually found to be in China, and many of them got repatriated to parts of the Americas and South America. But what's generally happened is that the Russian old believers who went to the Americas assimilated more heavily than the ones in like Argentina, for example. And so in the future, we may see new dialects of Russian evolve. Welsh just kind of like has a cult following in Argentina due to their descendants, and sort of Irish to a certain extent, but I don't think they don't have as secure of a future as like Russian. And I don't know about Japanese. Japanese, we're gonna have to see. Definitely its own dialect right now, but we'll see if it survives into the future, because it has a lot of cards stacked against it. But I mean, like Plattdeutsch and Russian, like they if they remain very not mainstreamed, we'll see the emergence of new languages. But that just also, we'll see the emergence of new Indo-European languages and continued death of indigenous languages. So yeah. It's just kind of interesting points to think about. I mean, yeah, it's really sad how many languages are dying around the world. And most of the new languages that we will form are going to be not as varied. They're going to follow, they're going to all be descended from Indo-European languages and Semitic languages, and well, the Sinitic languages are going to have become very heavily Mandarinized, and the Japanese in Japan is slowly becoming, or very quickly becoming, a language isolate because of them killing all the Ryukyuan languages. And Korean has what people call a dialect, but then they also say at the same time, it sounds basically like its own language. It's so hard to understand, it's basically its own language, then why not classify it as its own language? But the Jeju dialect is dying very rapidly, and Korean is diverging in many ways between the North and the South, but it's not diverging nearly as fast as the Jeju dialect is dying. Koreans can talk to each other, North and South. But I don't know. There's a lot of pressure